Blended Podcasts. Brought to you by Blended Audio.
Okay, welcome back to Talos Talks Shit. I'm here with my main man, Pubby.
Hey, what's up?
What's up, Pubby? How you doing?
Chilling, dude. It's been a while.
It has been a while. We've gone our separate ways and done some hopefully interesting research for you today. I'm going to start this by saying disregard almost everything I said in the previous 8 episodes. Not everything, but I tried to create a sort of intro series for everyone. We tried to explain the foundational basics of computation and AI and how we got to this very cool and interesting place we're in 2019. And as I was doing that, again, our good friend Dunning-Kruger coming back.
Good old Dunning-Kruger.
That valley gets deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah, the more you know.
The more you know, dude.
The more you know, man.
The more you know, you don't know. I realized that what we've done in the previous 8 episodes is pretty cool. Yeah, I feel like anyone can go listen to it from 1 to 8 and get a pretty good idea of what's going on in the field. And now to further the conversation and to keep going for this series, we are going to try look at some more interesting cases that are happening currently. We're going to line up some awesome interviews as well. We're going to just be a bit more current and have our fingers on the pulse a little bit more. So, that being said, episode 9 of Talos Talks Shit, we're talking about DeepMind.
Yeah.
DeepMind, we spoke a lot about AlphaGo in episode 8 and what was so amazing about AlphaGo and how it was able to beat Lee Sedol at Go, and major milestone for AI, just that in itself. But then this company DeepMind, which I'd actually like to talk about a little bit. DeepMind wasn't started that long ago. I think they were started in about 2011.
It's like 8 years ago.
I know, it's pretty crazy, dude. And they only joined with Google in 2014. So, I suppose you can think of DeepMind as one of Google's AI divisions. Acquisitions. And they have a very interesting mission statement. Their mission statement is to solve AI and use that to solve every other problem on the planet. I don't know if you want to weigh in on that, Puppy.
I mean, it's a pretty reasonable thing to try and do. It's super ambitious, right?
It's reasonable.
It's reasonable, but extremely ambitious. You're like, so I'm going to try solve intelligence, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's really what they're trying to say. What they are saying is that they are going to solve intelligence, but solve it in a way beyond our capabilities, and then I think they want to use this tech to unseat years worth of knowledge in various fields, and we're actually going to get into that today. So to start, what they did was they took this AlphaGo algorithm. Well, it's unfair to call it an algorithm because it's a collection of algorithms creating an AI, right?
So are we starting at the foundation of DeepMind, or are we stopping?
Well, we're starting. I feel like DeepMind and the Alpha AI are interconnected.
Okay.
And later we'll be talking about another company called OpenAI and how they connected. Sort of the company's vision and the AI's vision and capabilities seem to be intertwined. Yeah. I find that interesting, especially because DeepMind and OpenAI are leading the field at the moment.
Yeah, definitely.
So DeepMind really started with the outlook to try and beat Go. That was their first.
So actually, before that, so how I first heard of DeepMind was So do you know Atari? You know that?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So there were like a whole bunch of these like classic games.
All right.
And the other one is like Pong. You know,
Yeah.
you have that like ball and try to like get the ball to bounce back to the other side.
Yeah, it was like the first computer game.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Yeah. And it was just very difficult to get an AI to like learn how to play these games. And they developed this algorithm called DQN. So Deep Q Networks. And that paper, like that first algorithm, DQN, landed them on the nature of cover. I mean, on the cover of Nature.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And getting onto the cover of Nature is a big deal.
Pretty
They're
big deal.
Yeah. So that was how I first heard about them. And I think that's when people were like, okay, this
Here's
is
the
the thing.
start.
Yeah.
Okay, so, well, that's interesting, but that also speaks to our next fact in that they started with these expert systems, really. These AIs that were designed to do a specific task,
Yeah.
like beat Pong or beat Go.
Yeah.
And once they had done that successfully, they made quite a big leap to AlphaZero.
Yeah.
And what AlphaZero is fundamentally is it's a self-teaching algorithm. It uses adversarial play, which we've touched on. Essentially, you have two AIs battling each other. One tries to prove the other wrong, and the other one tries to trick the one that's trying to prove it wrong.
So that's GANs, right? So the subtle difference. So with so there's adversarial, generative adversarial networks, and so that's what happens. You have a discriminator and a generator, and the one network is trying to lie to the other network.
Right.
But then you also have self-play, which is where two neural networks just fight against each other. So in Go, they were actually playing Go against each other, and it wasn't like one neural network was like trying to make fake moves and the other one was trying to like spot the fake moves.
That's very true, because I apologize for misspeaking, but what they actually did was they set sort of targets for each AI playing against each other, and let's say the target is 50 points.
Yeah.
Once an AI got 50 points, they stripped the other one away and they made the two 50-pointers play against each other, and then the next one would be 100, and so on and so on and so on, until you end up beating the game.
Yeah.
But it's also important to note that these AIs started with no knowledge whatsoever.
No human knowledge.
Well, no knowledge. Just
Yeah.
nothing. They just started by making moves. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I mean, they had the moves of the game, and like they knew to make like valid moves.
Really, when they did
yeah.
AlphaZero for the
Yeah.
Go, okay, they were training from a Go data set, right?
Yeah. So,
okay.
so you had to. So, for example, if it was chess, right? You'd have to be able to tell the algorithm that, oh, you can't move your king more than one block. That's an illegal move.
Okay.
Or you can't like move your king the same way you move your knight or something.
Okay, so they had to have the rule set
Yeah.
embedded.
So there were some priors, but just no priors on how the best way to play the game.
How the game is played. Okay. So it's good you brought up chess, because what really separates AlphaGo from AlphaZero, and what really separates expert systems from the new generation of AI that's coming, well, maybe that's not the right way to say it, but really what separates these two is their abilities to adapt.
Yeah.
And AlphaZero was able to beat AlphaGo fairly quickly.
Fairly convincingly as well.
Fairly good. 8 million games to 1 or whatever it is.
It was some ridiculous number like that.
Yeah, and then it was able to learn chess and shogi as well. Shogi
Yeah.
as well, which is interesting because it wasn't designed for Go, it wasn't designed for chess, it wasn't designed for shogi, it was designed for learning.
Yeah, it's a general purpose algorithm, which, in fact, I've heard that algorithm works for any perfect information to play a game.
Okay, so this is getting into where AI and human thought start crossing over, game theory. How do you approach a game? Because you get a perfect game and you get an imperfect game.
Information, yeah.
What separates them is the available information. So a perfect game has a predefined information set, right? So you can only play on the board, you can only, as you say, move kings in certain directions, queens in certain directions, but an imperfect game has an imperfect data set.
So not necessarily, it's
An
about
incomplete data set.
visibility. So
It's about visibility.
So like with like a chessboard, right? You have to know where every single piece on the board is, right? Your opponent can't be like, the queen was actually on c9. You know?
Right.
You all know where the players are. I mean, where all the pieces are, and both players know the perfect state of the board at any given point.
Okay.
Whereas some games, like if you're playing Capture the Flag, or you don't know where everyone is, right?
Right.
So you don't have perfect information of the system at any given time. You have some view, like, oh, I can see this guy in front of me, or I can see the flag is over there, but you don't know the full system at any given time.
Okay, well, that's important because as soon as your ability to know the full system dwindles, your ability to solve the problems becomes exponentially harder.
True, yeah.
So each time there is an unknown, the way the AI has to solve for that unknown becomes exponentially harder. And I think this is a good point to talk about how these AIs actually do this. Well, how AlphaZero works with perfect data sets.
Sure,
And
yeah.
if you carry on listening, the next few episodes will expand on that to how even better AIs work with imperfect data sets. But basically, they use this function called the Monte Carlo tree search,
Yeah.
which works like a tree. If you visualize a tree with the roots being the base data that the AI has, and Puppy moves the knight to a certain position, the AI reads that, and it goes from the roots, all the sort of basic data points about that position and potential and whatever, and it moves up its tree.
Yeah.
And as it moves up its tree, it tries to find solutions to the problem it's presented, what move to make next.
Yeah.
And as it eventually gets to the end of its tree, the real magic starts. And it moves until it can't find any further moves for that situation. It then attempts to create a new set of moves based on its existing data set. And once it's created a suitable new set of moves based on its existing data set, it runs a simulation for those moves. But within that simulation, there's randomization. So if I make this move here and that happens, but the point is that it's random. That's what makes it adaptable, because if it carried on perfectly logically, it would be much more brittle, you know?
Yeah.
But because it gets all these random different moves that could occur, it accounts for various possibilities. Then once it's run its simulation and come to its conclusion, it uses backpropagation, which we spoke about earlier, which was a way for it to trace its thought back through the neurons within the network. And as it's tracing its thought back, it's tweaking certain neurons to say, okay, this has more of the potential for success, this has more of the potential for failure, and then it returns a move.
Yep.
But it does this, in like 25 milliseconds?
Yeah, it's very crazy. But also, so there are two parts. There's I would almost say a move evaluation part, which is to say, given any board position, how good is the situation for me? So I think they had, like, during like the live matches, they had like this dashboard where at every move the screen was showing the neural net's own thought of a probability of winning that game, right? So if it thought it was in a really bad situation, it would be, the probability of winning this game is like 0.1. But if it was in a good situation, it would be like a 0.9. So there's this ability for the neural network to evaluate a board position. And it also has this ability to search different parts of this tree space, as you said. And when you do backprop, you're doing backprop into the evaluation system, because the evaluation system is a neural net. So that's kind of so this neural net is being like, oh, this is a great position. And what you'll do is that you'll maybe explore parts of the tree where you haven't been before, and you thought it was a great position, but it turned out to be bad, right? So you backprop this part of the tree that you've searched into your evaluation function, which is this neural net, and the neural net will be like, oh, I thought this was a good position, but clearly I lost here, so I'm gonna like update my weights to remember that.
So it's evaluating and thinking at the same time.
So it's evaluation plus search.
Okay, and then also, without getting too stuck into the details of AlphaZero, it's important to note that these things are separate still. You know what I mean? The Monte Carlo tree search part and the evaluation neural net are not yet a homogeneous system. They have to run in different places and then correlate the agent's data and say, this tree search returned this result, and I believe this is a good evaluation of it.
Yeah.
So that has allowed AlphaZero to essentially tackle multiple challenges presented to it, and to beat all existing platforms we have to tackle those challenges, and
specifically like Go and chess.
Yeah. So that's really what AlphaZero was. Is it's as you say, a perfect logic focused algorithm for things like 2-player games and so on. And interestingly, the way it searches allows for it to use the same amount of processing power as current best methods, but use it more effectively. So when we played Stockfish, which is the best program we have for chess, it was able to beat it an unreasonable amount of times, but per move it was able to use less processing power but return a more advanced and more effective result, which is a huge step.
Yeah, and what's even like super interesting about that is that there's this, I don't know who did the experiment, but you can use AlphaZero but turn off the search and then just use the move evaluation, and apparently that still plays at like master level. It's still extremely strong. So even without being able to look 5 to 6 moves ahead, which requires compute, you could just use the evaluation function and be like, well, how good do you think this situation is and what should my next move be? So step 1 search, just look 1 move into the future, and it still performs extraordinarily well.
That's incredibly interesting, because really what that means is they've created 2 really robust AIs. One that ideally would be extrapolated to evaluate the world around it, and one that is capable of rapidly searching and returning possibilities to that evaluation.
Yeah.
And this obviously was a huge step forward, and this actually allowed them to tackle a problem that was very, impossible to solve essentially before AlphaZero came around, and it's got to do with biology, protein folding, and more time than is available in the universe.
Oh yeah, that was that was kind of scary when I read that. So I think it was that the problem was so hard that if you had to like simulate all the ways you could search the space of solutions to find like a correct one. It was like it would take the time of the universe to simulate it or something.
Well, we're going to figure out exactly what that was
Yeah.
in our next episode when we are looking at AlphaFold,
Yeah.
step 2 in the alpha algorithm. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you come back next time. As always, thanks to Blended Podcasts and Blended Audio for hosting us. Thanks, Pubby.
Thanks, dude.
And thanks to Mr. Maffiana and Selective Hearing for the really cool backing beats and outro beat. See you soon. Cheers.